Hey, folks. New Year's come and gone. We're starting to settle into our regular schedules, which means that it's time to go back to some sleep and some trying to just chill out a little bit. How do I do that? Well, one of my main go-tos, Sunset Lake CBD tinctures. That is my main go-to, and it's been my main go-to for years now. Jeez. And they're having a huge sale. 35% off all CBD tinctures. All you got to do is use the coupon code tincture at checkout. Sale ends February 3rd at midnight. So you get about 6 or 7 days. Check it out, folks. The tinctures have been huge in helping me sleep. Sometimes, like, when I'm Saturday afternoon, kids are getting a little bit, difficult. I need to make sure I take a little bit of that edge off, but I still need to function with them. A little bit of tincture. And they have all sorts of different concentrations, 3 different flavors, mint, original, and what's the other one?
There's
Citrus.
Citrus, yes.
Citrus. This is a great company. You've heard me talk about them for years now. Sunset Lake CBD. They are a majority worker-owned company. When they hire people, it's at $20 minimum wage. They grow all the hemp they use in their products. They do not use pesticides. They use integrated pest management. Everything they have, third-party tested to ensure quality. You can see that on their site. You can see it when you order it. Now, all CBD tinctures, 35% off with the coupon code tincture at checkout. Of course, you can get everything else at a 20% discount at Left is Best, their coupon code. But the tinctures help with aches, pains, including pains that might come in the form of 2 smaller children. One actually sort of bigger, but that's I love my kids. That's not, come on. But it also has really been wonderful to help me sleep. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Use the code tincture at checkout. Save 30%, 35% on all tinctures. Do not sleep on this, folks. Great time to try out a tincture. Sale ends.
But sleep with it.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Sale ends February 3rd. That's good. Now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it.
We do for
and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, January 27th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, executive editor of The American Prospect, David Dayen. On Biden's Chapter 2, Return of the Corporations. Also on the program today, lefty from way back, David Feldman will be joining us. Meanwhile, Jeff Zients named the new Biden chief of staff. And in Memphis, grand jury indicts 5 cops on murder charges as video of the killing of Tyre Nichols will be released tonight. RNC holds its very, very tense chairmanship elections today. I don't want to sway anybody's vote, but fingers crossed for the My Pillow guy. Adam Schiff announces a run for the California Senate versus, at the very least, Congresswoman Katie Porter. Florida will be bumping nearly 1 million people off of Medicaid come April. And, of course, Ron DeSantis wants you to be thinking about how woke things are. Russian strikes in Ukraine kill 11. FDA recommends the bivalent bivalent booster vaccine becomes the norm as a CDC study shows vaccines effective in illness reduction and at about 50% of efficacy in preventing infections. GDP grew by 2.9% in Q4 of 2002 as inflation and consumer spending slowed. Wages still hanging in there. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is Casual Friday. And, of course, Em and I both, pretty casual today.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty casual.
Collarless.
Yep. I've
collar.
moved into
the collarless era.
Yeah.
If we plotted this out over time, I think we're getting a lot of a cluster of collarless activity going on lately.
Oh my God. Far more.
Much more concentrated over the past 3 months than have ever before.
Yeah, I tried to get like the soft collar long sleeve shirt, couldn't find one, and I said, screw it, I'm just going with a long sleeve T-shirt. So, I don't. If people have a problem with that, fine.
Yeah.
Don't watch the show. I don't care.
If you want your host to be wearing a fedora, go somewhere else.
Exactly.
And there are plenty of places you can go.
I only wear a hat on this program when I am like literally playing a character. Anyways, really disturbing video supposedly is about to be coming out tonight. In this yesterday in Memphis, 5 cops were indicted for murder. And here is a clip of Rovan, is that her name? How do we pronounce it? Wells?
The mother of
Tyre
Nichols, who was murdered.
Who was murdered by the cops. He, 25-year-old guy, I think it was, right? 25, 26?
Yeah.
29. And they stopped him at a traffic stop. That escalates. Again, we haven't seen the video yet. The city has been bracing now for more than a week of the release of the video footage that apparently is just brutal to watch. And Tyree's mother has, in audio I heard today, I don't think we have that. We have an interview with her on Democracy Now! And this part of the family. Basically said, peaceful protests. That's what Tyre would have wanted. And here is Amy Goodman interviewing Tyre's family, and I believe with Tyre's lawyer, or the family's lawyer.
Benjamin Crump.
Tyre has a 4-year-old son. Tell us more about who he was, about his skateboarding prowess, working at FedEx, coming home for lunch each day to you. Just talk about how you want us to remember him.
I want you to remember Tyre. Tyre was different. Tyre didn't follow everyone. He was his own leader. He had a beautiful soul and he touched everyone. The boy smiled all the time. He loved his mother's cooking. He loved his son. That's why he came to Memphis in the first place, to be with his mom, build a better life for him and his son. But Memphis took my son away from me. I have nothing.
Tyre had a tattoo of you on his arm?
He had my name on a tattoo of my name on his arm.
This is going to be a tough, evening in terms of this video. Obviously, we'll have seen it over the weekend, but just another example of this going on, and
how systemic it is. I mean, they were 5 black cops, right? And so I'm seeing a lot of kind of cynical commentary on it, but this is what structural racism is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is that there's a problem with the police, which is what people have been saying in this country. And there was the idea of any type of reform. There was a lot of support, even, as late as in September of 2020 for Black Lives Matter. And it had gone down from over the course of the summer, but not dramatically. And yet, we watched the Republican Party didn't care, but the Democratic Party, basically guys who ended up losing in New York State, begin to sort of create some narrative that this was somehow, despite the fact that it was popular, was an electoral detriment.
Biden was
Which it absolutely wasn't.
No,
well,
it
that's the
wasn't.
point.
Yeah.
I mean,
Biden was chanting "Fund the police" at the State of the Union
The
over and over
The
again.
Democrats benefited massively from the George Floyd protests, and they didn't deserve it.
It was a fundraising opportunity for them. They've done nothing on legislation. In fact, they've done
They've
the
armed more
opposite and
cops. The
argued
opposite.
it for the opposite.
the opposite.
And so, my point is just that structures and institutions can be racist. It's not about the individual. We have a racist police system in this country.
That gets away with murder.
Tom Hartman had a piece, and he just, it was actually it was a great piece where he laid out how common it is in the United States relative to other countries for police to murder people. It's 30 times more common in the United States than in Germany and the UK.
Yep.
Just think about that.
And I mean, this is the point. It's not enough to lock up individuals in these instances. You need to reform policing in this country. There's really no other. The police should not be in charge.
There should be way fewer places and way fewer situations.
Yes, there's absolutely no reason for them to be doing traffic stops.
I'm not sure Spain is probably dealing with homelessness and stuff as well as anyone, but it struck me when I was there a year or so ago, they had vans that were there just to address emergency situations with people who weren't armed.
Yes,
Mental health stuff.
There's no reason why you need armed police doing traffic stops.
Exactly.
You don't.
It's ridiculous.
You don't. All right. In a minute, we're going to be talking to David Dayen, who has been on a tear as of late in terms of what he's writing, and also about the new chief of staff and sort of getting a report card in terms of the Biden administration's dealing with corporations in a moment. In the meantime, a couple of words from our sponsors. One of them today is ZBiotics. It is a pre-alcohol probiotic. It is a genetically engineered probiotic. You drink it before drinking alcohol to avoid a rough next morning type of situation. Get back to living your life. Scientists invented it because they know the real problem is not dehydration, apparently. It is a toxic byproduct of alcohol in your gut. And ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the only product that breaks it down. Just remember, you drink responsibly, you get plenty of rest, and the next morning, you're good to go. I took a bunch of this on that cruise because, more often than not, if I'm, I have some latitude on the weekends. But during the week, I don't want to, if I decide to have a drink or two and, you're on a boat, and of course you're going to. Next day I got to go and do some panels. I got to talk to people, and this stuff works. It really does. And it saves you because you can go out, have a drink, have a couple of drinks, doesn't matter. As long as you drink the ZBiotic beforehand, next morning, I was playing basketball. I was going on panels. I was really enjoying the cruising life, as it were. You can get 15% off your first order of ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic by clicking the link in the description box and use my code majority at checkout. Go to zbiotics.com/majority. Get 15% off on your first order. That's ZBIOTICS.com/majority. Get 15% off on your first order. Check it out. Super Bowl right around the corner.
Yes.
I have a feeling I know somebody who might be overindulging, and then she's got to show up at work on Monday. Just saying. Order your Z-Biotics now.
missed day, though.
You get
When
it
are
in
they going
plenty
to
of
move
time.
that to a long weekend?
Yeah.
But
that's not
first, I need the
happening.
Z-Biotics. You got to stop hoarding it.
15% off for your first order. I bought a 12-pack.
Oh, you bought it.
Oh yeah, I bought a 12-pack. I'm not messing around. Also, another sponsor today, Manukora honey. It is the bar none. I mean, look, I haven't tried every single honey on the planet, but it is the best tasting honey I have ever tried, and I've tasted a lot of honey, and it comes from New Zealand. It is there's apparently a particular island where the bees feed on the nectar of the Manuka tea tree, and they make a honey, honestly, that is taste-wise and texture-wise unlike any honey you have ever tasted. It is Manukora. They have the texture is super creamy. It tastes almost like caramel. It has, unique antioxidants and prebiotics. Has natural antibacterial compound called MGO that only comes from the nectar of this tea tree. Honey in general is sort of like a naturally antibacterial, but this is like supercharged. It contains nutrients that support optimal immune and digestive health. I will take a shot of it just in the evening. I want a little sweet stuff, but it's not as like super sweet as regular honey. It really is amazing. But of course, you can put it on ice cream. You can put it on, I don't know, you can put it in your tea or your coffee. It really is delicious. Manukora's Super Honey is available in a range of easy-to-use formats, including squeeze bottles and compostable honey stick packs. So you can eat it straight or add it to your favorite food or beverage on the go. If you head to manukora.com/majority, you'll automatically get a free pack of honey sticks with your order. It's a $15 value. That is MANUKORA. Manukora.com/majority. Get a free pack of honey sticks with your order. It's called Honey with Superpowers for good reason. So get on it. Try this delicious, creamy caramel honey. You won't look back at Manukora. And lastly, a lot of scams out there, a lot of attempts at stealing your identity. Twitter had a breach. I guess it was in November. I now know like multiple people who have had their accounts hacked in. Jonathan Larson had his account
Oh,
hacked.
really?
Yep.
Well, David Dayen.
Oh, and Dayan had
Who's
his account.
coming on.
Yes. And what happens is they steal, there's a data leak from somewhere. They see the password and the email combination that you use, and then they just go around to all sorts of websites and they break into your whatever it is. And
Don't reuse passwords, folks.
do not reuse passwords. But there's also something else you can do to make sure that you're basically you're not whatever, you're protected. And it is Aura, today's sponsor. Aura is an easy-use app. It includes everything you need to stay safe online. Aura protects you from those scammers and hackers. And what they do is they scan the dark web. That's where, like, basically, criminals sell this information. They look for your emails. They look for your passwords. They look for your social security number, and it alerts you fast if they find anything. They help you fight back against those websites that post your public information because they automatically send takedown notices to them. And apparently the sites have to do that. And they have to do it on some type of like consistent basis. They put it back up, but Aura will repeatedly send automatic requests to remove your info, gets rid of robocalls, keeps you safe from, I don't know, all sorts of people want to dox you, stuff like that. Aura gives you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries. Someone tries to, I don't know, get a car loan or open a loan or get a credit card in your name. You will know about it. I got alerted to when I opened up a new bank account for Mila. It was me, but it was really comforting, actually, to see something like that. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online, keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They protect your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, any of that stuff, so that guys can't break in and, I don't know, mess with your stuff, find your passwords or your logins or, hold your computer ransom. Or also helps you manage what your kids can do online with their devices. You can restrict specific apps. You can set screen time limits. You can set focus time, all of it. They have a password manager that lets you store and access your online passwords securely and conveniently. And you might have an app that does one or two of these things. This does all of those things. You don't need 7 separate apps for this stuff. Aura does it all. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now, Aura's going to give you a 2-week free trial with my link. You're going to be shocked at how much of your private information Aura is going to find for you. Go to aura.com/majority to start your free trial. See how extensive your exposure is. Aura.com/majority. Start your free trial. It is linked in the YouTube and podcast description and on the website. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Dayen. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland, trying the patience of our next guest, who has been incredibly patient with us as we were running a little late this morning. David Dayen, executive editor of the American Prospect. David, welcome back to the program. You know, I still remember the days where you were doing like the news for Fire Dog Lake, and I would be like, he must not sleep. And the stuff.
It's that time all over again. We got a super committee. We're talking about budget cuts, Social Security cuts. Everything's coming up 2011 here.
It really is. And Zintz is also that guy. I mean, that's also and
is it Zeitz or Zintz? We got to know.
It's Zions.
Zions. Okay. All right.
Well, I call him Zintz, so I don't care.
A lot of good dogs going to do
It's casual Friday. You can call him whatever you want.
Let's start with him. I mean, and I should just say, I just want to say off the top, you wrote a piece that's going to be in February's American Prospect magazine. I hope everybody by now has signed up and become a subscriber to the Prospect. But this piece is really important to understand how government works and how it doesn't work. And that, it's a great piece. It's a long piece, but I want to talk about that a little bit. But let's start with Zients, because new chief of staff was just officially named today. And tell us about this guy. I will say this. I know he was like the COVID czar for Biden. And about a year and a half ago, completely by chance, I just know somebody through somebody else who is like a business person. I don't know that many, but he's a very successful business.
Dagger stuff.
and was
I know
just like
somebody
knows
through
this guy.
somebody.
I never brought it up because it was sort of like, once, but it knew this guy and was just like, ugh. Like, I mean, he's not even qualified even in the business world, it feels like. But tell us about him.
Well, Jeffrey Zients has been someone who's been sort of around Democratic policy circles since the Obama administration. He was on 2 occasions acting director of the Office of Management and Budget. He became he got this aura of being known as a real efficiency expert and Mr. Fix-It, mainly because they brought him in when healthcare.gov was failing in 2013, maybe 2014, perhaps. And the thing fixed itself. But apparently what he did, why he has this sort of refracted glory, is that he, hired people who fixed healthcare.gov. Like he managed the process whereby other people fixed it, and then he got the credit for it. That seems to be the issue.
Yeah.
That rose him to prominence.
And he comes from a consulting background, right? Which is, I think, a very important way to understand his ideology, because he was pro-TPP, seemingly cuts to social spending in the middle of that fight in 2011, 2012. And when you're an efficiency guy who's the chief of staff for a president who sometimes has had that proclivity to, he was in favor of those cuts. That's what's deeply concerning, to me at least.
Yeah, I mean, as we just said, we're back in this position with a looming debt limit, with Republicans taking over the House and wanting to use these leverage opportunities to cut spending, maybe cut Social Security spending, Medicare spending. This is like where you need, in the words of The Godfather, a wartime consigliere, right? This is the moment where you need a real fighter, because you're going to be in these high stakes negotiations. And the last time that we saw a Democratic president and a Republican House, same situation, Zients was at the forefront of it, and particularly at the forefront of all these budget cuts. We dug up a press event from April 2013, and this was right after the fiscal cliff negotiations, where the automatic cuts eventually went into place through the sequester, and then the tax. The Bush tax cuts were expiring, but then most of them were made permanent at that time. And Zients was just lauding the fact that we had engaged in trillions of dollars of deficit reduction. Of course, what we know now is that stunted the growth and return of employment and economic growth. We had a 9-year trajectory where we didn't get back to the same employment levels as we had prior to the Great Recession. And the fact that the recovery was way too meager was a big part of that. And Zients was a big part of that. So I mean, my concern is kind of that there's, I've heard from a lot of people that he's not going to disrupt the trajectory that the Biden administration is on. He's an implementer. He's not going to input his ideology. This is what I've heard from people who, are in a position to know. But there's a different tenor. Implementation is super important. We've talked about it a lot. That mostly happens at the agency level. The White House can sort of put pressure, but it does mostly happen among the agencies. But there's this big looming fight out there that I think is going to be the major thing that the White House is going to be dealing with for the next 6 months. And having someone who was a corporate executive who ran a conglomerate that was not unlike Warren Buffett's conglomerate at a place called the Cranmere Group, which had some run-ins with Medicare fraud. I'm not sure that this is super ideal, especially given that Klain kind of set a standard of being a pretty good chief of staff.
I've heard that he's a really nice guy, though. Let's put this clip. This is from. It's been a long time. I didn't even know they were still doing their show. But Pod Save America. And, this is, let's play this clip. And this is sort of the most disturbing type of commentary, in my estimation. Like where somebody sort of has a personal relationship and just found him pleasant around the office.
Gov. There's the criticism from progressives are saying Jeff is too close to the business community. He made money in healthcare and the private sector. They're concerned about that focus. I think those are very fair things to raise and to point out. But I also know that when we worked with him, he fought for increases in minimum wage, overtime pay. And I also think that Jeff will think that his job is to implement the Biden agenda. He's not coming in there with some determination to advance some, corporate interest that is more important to him. No, he's there to serve Joe Biden.
Yeah. If Jeff Zients ends up helping Biden make a bunch of pro-corporate decisions, then the criticism is well warranted. I generally have a problem with criticism that is only about someone's past and resume and not about the actual decisions and policies they have implemented during their time in government. I think those should be a subject of criticism. And like in terms of Jeff, not only did he oversee the NEC during some of Obama's most progressive economic policies, the push for some of the most progressive economic policies, he ran the Biden transition and helped hire some of the more progressive people in the Biden administration. Pramila Jayapal, who runs the Congressional Progressive Caucus, she talked to Semaphore about this. She said, we really appreciated Jeff's collaboration on COVID policies, on the American Rescue Plan, which both included bold and progressive policies. Yep. So you see the actual progressives in Congress are feeling pretty good about him. You get some lefty activists and media types who are upset, but that's, to be expected.
Hey, listen, I think it's good, like voice these things now and then hold them accountable. I also,
Okay. So did the COVID stuff really work out that well? I mean, here's the point.
That is interesting because it sort of elided that. I forgot he did run the NEC during Obama's time in government, but I have heard the same thing about he wasn't in charge of the transition, but he was involved in the transition, involved in some of the hiring, and certainly we saw to some degree. Some decent,
but let me ask you this: but in terms of the role of the chief of staff, right? Klain was there, like it seems to me, on day one or prior to day one, in terms of like being the chief of staff.
Yeah.
Will you explain to people what the chief of staff does? Because it's not the idea that the chief of staff is just implementing Biden's policy, but not in any way shaping it. It seems to me to be not true. I mean, just the position itself, it changes depending on who the person is, but the idea that Klain didn't make a difference. The Klain was just there, you could have put anybody in there, and to the extent that there are good things that come out of the Biden administration, completely irrelevant to that, Ron Klain. That seems to me to be very hard to believe.
It's different in every White House, right? I mean, the power dynamics of every White House change depending on the personalities of the people involved. Klain obviously was someone who had the respect and the authority to really dictate a lot of the politics that the White House engaged in. And he had good relationships with sort of every faction of the Democratic Party and listened to them and took their advice and played it out. It changes. It depends. Someone like obviously Rahm Emanuel was a chief of staff, and he was a big personality and meant a lot to the ways in which the Obama administration at that time engaged in tactics. During these debt limit and fiscal cliff negotiations, Bill Daley, who was a J.P. Morgan Chase executive, was the chief of staff for the White House. And I think that the desire for a grand bargain, is reflected in Daley's concerns and interests. You can have other chiefs of staff. Certainly like under Trump, the chief of staff really didn't matter. It was like a name. Reince Priebus wasn't really getting a lot done in the Trump White House. So it depends on the various personalities involved. The claim is that Zients is just going to be, a functionary, right? He's
right.
But
his
opinions aren't going to matter at all. I find that a little hard to believe.
It's ridiculous. And the idea that the critique is not based on his record is a straw man that they were putting up there in Pod Save America. The critique is, of course, his record. You mentioned the COVID stuff. He oversaw the complete bungling of the response during the Omicron wave, didn't order extra PPP. And then you can go back and critique him on his role in the Obama administration, a more pro-austerity, more pro-deficit hawkery member of that staff. So no one's critiquing him because he has an associate. I mean, that's, I think, informative that he was a part of of corporate America and big business. The critique is on his record primarily.
And I don't think you have to go to his corporate past to have concerns.
There you go. Yeah.
About yes.
And isn't there also, like, aren't we also talking about, the chief of staff is the primary filter for what the president sort of like, the information, the meetings, the people that the president gets. It seems to me that, like, you can make that filter determines, who's coming in to the office, like what information Biden's getting, how Biden perceives what's going on outside. It's like if I put a red gel on the window of the White House, he's looking out. Biden's gonna be like, this seems a little bit red out there. Or I put a blue one. It's like, hey, things are looking a little chillier out there. Like that makes a big difference.
It's like saying that Bradley doesn't matter, right?
Historically, chiefs of staff are somewhat gatekeepers. That also changes from White House to White House. I know there are some big personalities in this White House. The staff secretary is someone who literally hands the paper and gets it on the Resolute desk, and that is Neera Tanden in this White House. So there are gatekeepers at various levels that you have to deal with. During the Obama administration, the National Economic Council director, when it was Larry Summers, was very much the gatekeeper there. And by the way, the NEC is probably changing. Brian Deese is leaving. There's talk of Lael Brainerd, who is at the Fed right now and is pretty respected there, coming over, which is probably bad for Fed policy more than it is good for the NEC. Right. But you have this jumble, right? And ultimately, someone who Biden has a close relationship is going to get more authority there. And Biden worked hand in hand with Zients. He entrusted the transition to him. He worked with him when he was in the White House in the in the Obama administration, particularly on fiscal cliff and economic policies. Biden was the liaison between the White House and Congress on a lot of those deals. And so, and what we know about his instincts, Biden's instincts, was one of giving up the farm. I mean, giving away leverage that Congress thought they had, Democrats in Congress thought they had at that time. And so, it's not just so much Zients coming in, but this pairing, of when we're going into this negotiation. And you're right, though, that there is this gatekeeper function. And so, what we're going to hear out of this White House is it could be somewhat different.
Let's talk a little bit about you've written two stories over the past. Well, I don't know. I mean, probably a third or fourth that I haven't read yet over the past, I don't know, 48 hours. But you did one story on how Chuck Schumer managed to sink two really what seemed to be pretty important bills. The American Innovation and Choice Online Act and the Open Markets Act. Tell us what those bills are, and then it is one. half of a coin in terms of like what's been happening for the last 2 years in the during the Biden era. We're entering into a new era, really, in terms of, it seems to me, both because we don't have the legislative opportunities, and on some level, the agencies are ramping up, are finally now like hitting their full stride, which you write about in this other piece, A Pitched Battle on Corporate Power. Talk about the Schumer deep sixing these bills, and then we'll talk about the other.
So there were two bills. These were basically tech platform focused bills, looking at the power, concentrated power of these giants. One, the American Innovation and Choice Online Act, had a few items a few elements to it, but the big one was to prevent what is called self-preferencing, which is when a Google or an Amazon puts their products ahead of rivals on their own platform and essentially favors their own products. That would have been banned by ICOA.
That's like a platform analogy to net neutrality in many respects.
Yeah, it's a common carrier non-discrimination kind of rule. Yes. The Open App Markets Act is similar to that. It's around mobile apps, and there are certain rules that app developers have to abide by on both Google and Apple's phones and their app stores. They have to give a large percentage of their money that they make in-app purchases to these gatekeepers as kind of a toll booth kind of situation. And that would be stopped by the Open App Markets Act. So these were two of the biggest potential bills to change antitrust law, to try to mitigate the power of the tech platforms. And these had broad bipartisan support. At one point, Chuck Grassley, who was the co-sponsor of ICOA, said he had over 20 Republicans on the Senate side in support of it. Everyone involved, pretty much to a person, except for Chuck Schumer, says that if these bills were put on the floor in the Senate, they would have passed. And similarly in the House was waiting to see if the Senate could get the 60 votes that it needed to pass these things. They passed out of committee with broad bipartisan support, and everyone was waiting for them to get a floor vote, at which Chuck Schumer promised in early summer of last year. He said they're going to get a vote in the summer. And he essentially ran out the clock. And I sort of recreate the timeline of this from that point in early summer of last year. And at every step of the way, you see Schumer just not putting this thing on the floor, even though the votes were there. And he ran out the clock. And now we see today that House Republicans have taken Ken Buck, who was the strongest sort of antitrust enforcement individual in the House caucus. They took him off of the chairmanship of the House Antitrust Subcommittee and put on Thomas Massie, a libertarian who's in bed with big tech. So this is the end, as we kind of suspected, of these bills having a shot. And the reason that they're not going to go forward, and the reason that big tech is going to maintain its hold and its power is because, first of all, $270 million that the industry spent to stop this, but primarily to target one person, and that's Chuck Schumer.
And Chuck Schumer, I mean, where does his fealty to these companies come from?
Well, I mean, there's a lot you can say. He has two daughters, one of whom works as a lobbyist at Amazon, and the other who works as a marketing manager at Facebook.
What? No, David.
But
you don't think that they influence his decision making? I mean, and let's be clear. I just want to be clear. This is not a question of he's doing this because it's going to enrich his daughters. I don't think. Even just like in the most generous assessment is, this is what he hears on a daily basis. Dad, they don't get it. We need this ability to do this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't even know if it goes that far. Like the Open App Markets Act
is about Apple and Google, and his daughters work for Facebook and Amazon, right? I mean, there's something about this whole industry that Schumer wants to protect. And what we know is that 80 members of Schumer's staff have gone on to directly or indirectly work for big tech platforms or their law firms or their lobbying engines. Just this month, the chief counsel to Schumer went to Aiken Gump, which is a law firm that he went to the lobby shop of Aiken Gump, a law firm that counts Amazon as one of its biggest clients. Schumer was spotted over the summer up in the Seattle area, where he met with Microsoft's Brad Smith, the president and CEO, about this particular bill. He controls, and I think this is probably the bigger thing, but we don't know the extent of it. We know that Schumer gets a lot of money from the tech industry, but what we don't know is how much money goes into the dark money super PAC that the Senate controls, the Senate Democrats control. It's called Majority Forward. And there was $100 billion or $100 million in that particular fund. And we don't know where any of it came from. But you can bet that there's probably either a lot of money from the tech industry flowing into that, or a lot of threats that if you don't play ball and not put this bill on the floor, we're going to put a lot of money into your counterpart. We're going to put a lot of money into Mitch McConnell's dark money PAC. And the same threats, implied threats, were made to senators up for re-election, which made them a little bit more, loath to take a vote on these bills.
Definitely worth a read for folks, again, to sort of watch this dynamic where someone could say, like, I definitely am supportive of this bill, and then all of a sudden, like, we just didn't have the time to get to it.
The quote that Schumer gave me is quite amazing, where he says he believes in this and he's not going to give up.
Right.
Like, you have the ability to put the bill on the floor for 6 months. What do you mean you're not going to give up?
He's not going to give up. He's not going to give up, David. That's what he's not going to give up. This is like anybody who works in like middle management in some corporation knows like the name of this game, which is like, I'm definitely going to get to it. And then just like, I'm definitely, oh God, you know what? I tried to, but we had a snafu down in, the guys at R&D were.
There was one amazing moment. There was one amazing moment that I'll quickly explain here, which is that at the end, in the lame duck session, they were trying to insert these bills into the must-pass organs, like the omnibus spending bill. Nobody was going to object if that got stuck in there. Nobody was going to take down the spending bill because of one of these measures. And it started. There's a process where the Judiciary Committee ranking member and chair have to clear the bill to say, okay, you can put that in the omnibus. And they did that for the Open App Markets Act. And a tweet went out from Emily Birnbaum, who's Politico's reporter on these tech issues, saying, according to Schumer's office, Mitch McConnell killed the Open App Markets Act. And about 5 minutes later, that tweet was taken down and replaced with a tweet that said, according to sources familiar with the negotiation,
oops,
Mitch McConnell abandoned the bill. It just, to everyone I talked to, that was sort of an aha moment, that the fact that they sloppily put their name to try to finger Mitch McConnell, point him as the culprit, and then took it off very rapidly, was it was very clear who was stage managing the process and who was gaslighting this whole time.
All right, let's turn to another piece that it's a big piece, and I want to try and sum it up. But it basically starts with Joe Biden back in the middle of 2021 signing a. It's not even quite an executive order per se, or is it an executive order?
Yeah,
I guess
it's an executive order.
72 different actions. What were the nature of these actions?
So this was an executive order to promote competition in the U.S. economy. It came out of years of work from anti-monopoly reformers, people like Lena Khan and Jonathan Cantor and Tim Wu, who up until just about a couple of weeks ago was the lead at the National Economic Council on competition policy, and this was his baby. This executive order, he basically put this thing together, and the idea was to adopt a whole of government approach to completely changing the way in which, over the last 40 years, the government has perceived competition in the economy. It was sort of welcomed. It was said that government should have a light hand in intervening in these markets. And what Wu and these reformers have said is that no, actually, what we need to do is government needs to use its authority, use its power to make sure that competition is fostered within the economy, and that monopoly power is broken down. And so these 72 actions, some of them are reports, some of them are encouraging agencies to take certain regulatory action. It depends on whether it's a cabinet agency or an independent agency, whether you can say you can direct them to do something, or you can say, well, please do something, essentially. And what I wanted to know a year and a half after this thing was put into the world is what got done, and and really has the mindset changed, where all agencies across the government are viewing these large businesses more skeptically, and viewing the need for some competition within these sectors as a real priority. And it was really interesting to dig into this, because I went out to every agency that was mentioned in this directive, and every one of them, except for I think one, got back to me, which is very rare as a reporter. Like, that does not happen.
Well, I want to get into what you found, but what's also fascinating about your story is not just like sort of what material things happened because of it, but also what it means to elect a president, generically speaking, and what it means, like, we were told during the Obama years that progressives had this notion of like the Green Lantern theory, that the president has this magical power to change things, and that is
no, that he doesn't. I mean,
right, that he doesn't. Right, yeah, but that supposedly progressives felt that he did have a magical power, and in fact he doesn't. You're all imagining these things, and we know, and I had interviewed I think all of those people at one time or another, including yourself, who wrote a book on monopolies. That the laws existed on the books since the Reagan era. Well, prior to that, but since the Reagan era,
1890s, yeah.
And it was Reagan's sort of like Borkian perspective that just sort of changed the perspective on all these laws, and essentially changed what defined antitrust in as the rubber meets the road. And this was, at the very least, an attempt to go back to the prior understanding of what antitrust was it's not just about our consumers getting a cheaper price. It's about competition, broadly speaking, and the implications not just for the consumer in the short term in terms of prices, but in terms of services and variety of things, and wages for workers, and political power throughout our society.
And you're right to point out that it was about rediscovering the rather mundane fact that who is president matters, right? like that a president's opinion can actually move out across the government, including independent agencies, and change their approach. And that has been true to some extent, and it's also met resistance in some agencies, like the Department of Transportation, like the Department of Health and Human Services, like USDA to some extent. But it really has made progress in other facets. Government's sort of not a monolith, right? I mean, there are differing opinions. There's different resistance. But the fact that the president was on board with this, the fact that he showed up to every meeting of the Competition Council, which has been put together to sort of, monitor the actions that are being taken, and the fact that every agency comes to that meeting, and the president's sitting there and he's like, "What have you done?" And they have to have an answer for that. It's created this positive dynamic where we are seeing real changes being made. And some of the changes are not even in the executive order. They're just things that are happening. I'll give you 2 examples of that.
All right, I want you to give me the examples, but before we do, and I know this is sort of like arguably like rudimentary, but I'm fascinated by this dynamic. What is different between an agency that is resistant to adopting this perspective and it filter through all the things that they do, one that is really gung-ho, and one that is sort of like agnostic, but reacts to it?
I mean, what is the difference? I mean, I think there's one is leadership. That's one reason why it could be different. You have a little tiny agency like the Surface Transportation Board, which is this small agency that governs the railroads. And it actually has been really, really successful in engaging in rulemaking and cracking down, forcing the railroads to serve their customers better. Trying to change this trajectory where the rail industry has, for years, throttled capacity to try to boost their own profits. This was described to me as like the model agency for how this works. And they're not a cabinet agency, right? They're an independent body. And then you have like a sprawling agency like the Department of Transportation, which has its hands in a million different things, or HHS, which governs Medicare and the FDA and all these other different departments. And there are pockets in those agencies that are like, no, this is the way we've done things for years and years and years. It's the way we've done things since I've been here, and I, bureaucrat, matter more than the president of the United States and his directive on these particular issues. And so you see it. I mean, even sometimes within the same agency, like look at the USDA, the Department of Agriculture. So at one level, they have done these incredible investments in the fertilizer industry, in small meat packing agents, processors, to try to, get rid of these seed and agricultural giants that are dominating our food system. At another level, the Department of Justice sued to block a sugar monopoly, and the chief economist of the USDA testified on behalf of the sugar companies. This is one agency testifying essentially against another within the government to say that these 2 sugar agencies, companies that would merge and create a real monopolistic giant, they're going to be fine. So sometimes it's even within the same agency. But the other thing that's important about this is I think this executive order really emboldened the new team at the main antitrust agencies, right? The Lena Khan at the FTC, Jonathan Cantor at the Department of Justice Antitrust Division. It backed up what they wanted to do, and it gave sort of presidential level support to the very hard and radical things that they were trying to accomplish. And I don't think you see, like, for example, what we saw this month with a proposed ban on non-compete agreements at the FTC without this executive order saying, we want you to do this.
So this gives a green light for people who are already on board with that sort of antitrust program, gives them a green light, and it provides a little bit of heft when they go to other agencies and say, guys, you got to do it this way. And the implication is like, you're either, the president's going to be upset. The president wants this, and if it doesn't happen, you're going to be upset.
For a smaller agency, it gives them a source of support that they can point to with the industry. What Tim Wu said to me is like, he would go to agencies and say, we want to propose this. And they would say, well, that's a landmine. And he would say, well, give us your landmine, right? We'll do it through an executive order. And then you can say, the president wanted to do that, have the industry go to them, right? So we'll take on the landmines.
This is the salesman saying, like, it's my manager says I can't do it. And so I'm sorry. I would give you the free AC, but my manager says we can't do it. Transportation. There's a lot of pressure on Pete Buttigieg to do something about the airline industry. Yeah. Time and time and time again, there was multiple occasions for him to do it. He didn't do it. This Southwest, was it? I think, huge fiasco.
Yeah.
And then just the other day, I noticed Lena Khan's chief of staff moves over there.
Yes.
How should we read that? Like, what is that? What is the message there? Is it Pete Buttigieg realizing, like, oh crap, this is like, I need to make it look like I'm doing something because I want to run for president someday? Or is it the White House saying, you got to do something because this is hurting us and we're sending somebody over there who knows what to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can read it in both of those ways. Obviously, this has become something of a vulnerability for both the White House, but more important for Secretary Pete. This is a vulnerability for him. The Department of Transportation, huge agency, a lot of entrenchment in their way of thinking. I report in this story that a consumer advocate who was in a discussion with agency officials said, well, why aren't you trying to ban these fees? There's this movement across the government to ban junk fees, like fees on a glass of water, or fees on printing out your boarding pass. That's an actual fee at some airlines like Spirit. Why don't you ban these junk fees? And the officials said back to this consumer advocate, well, that would be a departure for the department. That would be a huge departure. So, I mean, this stuff predates Buttigieg, frankly. I mean, secretaries of both parties have done essentially nothing to stop the power and dominance of the airlines and their willingness to rip off customers. And so, putting Jen Howard, who was Lena Khan's chief of staff, she also worked closely with Rohit Chopra when he was at the FTC and previously at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, putting her as chief competition officer with, an eye toward, these consumer protection issues at the airlines, I think does signal like, okay, well, we tried it the first way, which is just, putting out an executive order and telling them to do a bunch of things. Now we got to bring in our own person and maybe, get a new perspective there, a new way of thinking, and maybe that'll shake things up.
How much can the Department of Transportation do with these kinds of things? I mean, the fee thing you bring up, but a lot of this you can trace back to the Airline Deregulation Act of 78.
No.
Congress has to act, obviously, and Buttigieg is not acting enough, obviously. But what can Buttigieg be doing? Yeah. Well,
you look at what the FTC just did on non-competes. The reason that they have the authority to do that is what it's called Section 5 authority. And that is the fact that the FTC has the ability to make rules and enforcement on any unfair and deceptive practices within industries under which they oversee. And so they can write a rule and saying XYZ is an unfair and deceptive practice, and we're going to ban it. Or you company are engaged in an unfair and deceptive practice, and we're going to fine you for it. Well, it turns out the Department of Transportation has the exact same statute with the exact same language as the FTC. So if the airlines are scheduling an unreasonable number of flights that they know that they can't service because they don't have enough staff to run those planes, and then they cancel those flights, that could easily be seen as an unfair and deceptive practice by the airline industry. In fact, we learned this week that the Department of Transportation is investigating Southwest, and they're investigating Southwest over that very issue, that the unreasonable scheduling was an unfair and deceptive practice. And so this pressure that has been put on the agency is starting to work, and they're starting to see what their power is. And that unfair and deceptive practice rule gives the department a tremendous amount of power to not just force disclosure in fees, like transparency. Oh, so I know I'm getting ripped off, so that I feel better about it. They can stop these things. They can stop these practices, and we'll see if they do it.
How durable is this shift? In other words, coming in, it seems to me that there were two major, maybe three major pushes or forces within the Biden administration that were sort of like both manifested in individuals and also sort of like movement. And that was antitrust, largely championed largely by sort of like Warrenites, labor largely championed by Sanderites, and then climate, which was sort of like a broad sort of understanding within the Democratic Party. And it seems to me those three areas have been the most, we've seen the most happen in those areas, right? Like the National Labor Relations Board has become much stronger. The antitrust, we're talking to you about it, but we've been following that. And we are seeing some real move. And the IRA, to some extent, the Inflation Reduction Act, dealt with at least maybe the minimum, but at least some level of climate, addressing climate issues. Yeah. Woefully insufficient, but within the context of what was available legislatively. How durable is it? And is there an administration that could come in afterwards? How hard would it be for, let's say, Trump, the Trump administration, to come in and reverse this, let's say, the antitrust ideology, if you will, that shifts these agencies? Or is it once you get into a certain track, there has to be an extraordinary amount of effort to sort of like shift that trajectory?
Well, it's a very good question. I would say just as it takes a long time to move the trajectory of the ship of state, it takes just as long to move that back. In certain things like climate and labor, if you build a solar manufacturing plant, you have the plant, right? You're going to keep going with it. If you, what we've seen with the NLRB is that these things they whipsaw back and forth every time. I think that's less durable, actually. Some of these NLRB decisions, but if Trader Joe's organizes, then that's organized, and hopefully we get out of Starbucks and Amazon and Trader Joe's and some of these other places, we get actual contracts. That's the next step. With antitrust, I think that there is a mindset change, right? And once that mindset changes, just as the Biden administration has seen some resistance among some agencies to change their views, I think the Trump administration would have similar difficulties, or DeSantis or whoever it is. There's also the fact that there's at least some bipartisan interest in these issues, and it's kind of when the rubber meets the road is when you see if Republicans are really interested in this. But I do think there's, at least rhetorically, some desire to keep these things up. And I'll give you a last example, because some of this stuff is happening in places that is so buried and so sort of under the surface that no president is going to figure out what the change even happened before it happens. Here's the example. So the U.S. Forest Service, of all places, engaged in one of the biggest anti-monopoly actions of the past several months. There's this stuff called fire retardant, which is like the red gooey stuff that comes out of a plane when they're trying to suppress a big wildfire. And there's one company that makes all of it. The product is called Phoscheck. The company is called Perimeter Solutions. And it turns out that at the U.S. Forest Service, there's this thing called the Qualified Product List, or QPL, which is essentially a certification process for this retardant actually works, right? And this is what you should buy. And not only states and municipalities are sort of required to go by the QPL, even other countries use the QPL as this is what we're going to buy. For 22 years, there was only one company on that QPL. There was only one product that was able to be bought by states and cities. And just in December, the U.S. Forest Service put a new company on that list, and instantly creating double the number of competitors and hopefully creating a virtuous situation where, there'll be some actual competition within this tiny, tiny market. Where cities and states, because there was only one company and total monopoly, were being ripped off. So that's an example. Like, the Trump administration isn't going to come in and get rid of the second company on the QPL of the U.S. Forest Service list. They might do it eventually, but it's not going to be the first thing on their list, right?
Saw Dayan
and there are many
on the Majority Report.
Like
the QPL, get on it. First thing.
Exactly. It's just not going to happen. And so some of this stuff happens at such sort of a sub agency level that it's going to stay in place, and it's going to be important, even though it's obscure.
David Dayen, you, the American Prospect, national treasures, completely protected from the from a DeSantis or DeTrumpus or whatever that administration comes in. The durability there is amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. We will put links to all the pieces we talked about today at majority.fm and in the podcast and YouTube description. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, David.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk to another American institution in just a moment.
Another American David.
Another American David, another American institution in just a moment. David Feldman will be with us. We got to take a... Oh, wait. No, we don't need to take a break. He's on the phone. Oh, he's on the phone. Oh, okay. All right. Hold on for 1 second. I didn't know. I should say, that it's Friday, and I just called in. Andy Kindler, Judy Gold couldn't make it. And so, you know what that means? We have David Feldman. And if you just give me a moment... for those lucky enough to have no idea who David Feldman is, he's the host of the David Feldman Show, which you cannot hear on iHeart Radio, if I remember correctly. And for some reason, his podcast isn't distributed by iHeart Radio. Let me get him on. So you might want to consider, as I have, using the iHeartRadio app to make absolutely sure that you don't. That's actually how I listen to my favorite radio station. And one of the benefits is that there's no way that the David Feldman Show is going to accidentally start playing, when I'm driving the kids to skateboarding or soccer practice or wherever it is, because it's really difficult for young people or old people, for that matter, to unhear what David Feldman tries to pass off as entertainment. So fasten your seatbelts, folks, mostly around your neck. That's a little, I just thought you might appreciate that.
Yeah.
Squeeze real tight. David Feldman, welcome back to the program, as we didn't have the availability of other people.
Wow. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you. Welcome to the show.
Okay. So you're not going to let go of it?
I'm not sure I follow. Let go of what?
All right. The joke, I stole a joke, what was it, 15 years ago from you?
And
you're not going to let go?
I have no idea what you're talking
about. You don't
let
go?
Absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
None.
Sure you don't. Sure. I know.
I honestly, I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about.
I was on the Rosie O'Donnell show. Bobby Collins was guest hosting. You don't remember that?
I mean, that man, not maybe a little bit.
Back in 1999? And I
remember the year.
And I accidentally did your bit about Bill Clinton telling Monica Lewinsky, what was it, like close but no cigar, something like that. You don't remember your bit that I accidentally pinched?
I do not remember the joke, to be honest with you. I don't even know what that joke would have been referencing.
Close but no cigar. Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. You don't remember your bit that I accidentally took?
I'm not even sure. In '99, I was even like in clubs at that time.
Wow. Well, okay. All right. And you didn't call Rosie's producer and say David Feldman's a joke thief, right? You didn't call me screaming. You don't remember? You called me a joke thief, and then you called my mother, and you told her that I'm a joke thief. So I couldn't borrow the car for like a month because you called my mother and said I was a thief. Okay, all right. I offered to pay. But you were so jealous that I was on Rosie's talk show, and you weren't, and you were more interested in destroying my career than furthering your own. It somehow seems to have forgotten that.
No, none of this ever happened. I don't know if you're serious, but
right.
if you are,
Nothing.
you're delusional.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So, David, it's just like palate cleansing. Lot going on now in the 118th Congress, as you know. George Santos, Marjorie Taylor Greene sitting in the Homeland Security. Mike Pence is like...
must be nice. It must be so nice. It must be so nice to be you, Sam. It must be so wonderfully nice to be Sam Seder. Must be so nice.
Well, David, I'll tell you, I'm not sure why you're saying that at the moment, but yes, thank you. It is.
So nice. So nice. It must be nice to live in that bubble of privilege that you and Emma have carved out for yourself. You and Emma, such a lovely and leafy rhetorical cul-de-sac with your son Matt. I hear him with your son Matt.
Yeah,
where the tragedies of the world can't find your neighborhood. You should call the Majority Report the Pines with
the
Sam and
the Pines.
Yeah, the Pines. It's a good name for a gated community, which is what your show is. God forbid your son Matt go to a public school and see how the real people live.
All right, yeah. Matt's not my son. You know that, right?
I also went to public school.
And he went to public school, but he's not my son.
He's not your son. Okay,
No.
That's between you and Emma.
Yeah, he's not my son either, David.
Wait, what?
Okay, so no wonder Matt is so effed up in the head. Instead of the Majority Report, how about calling it the Breakers on the Bay with Sam and Emma? A sanitized iteration of the world in our gated community of a talk show where it never rains, nobody has trouble paying the bills. It must be so nice for you, Sam. It must be so nice.
David,
it must be so nice.
I'm not sure if you heard my intro. I was pushing the David Feldman show. There's a lot going on this week.
You.
We got tanks in Ukraine. We got body cam footage of the attack on Paul Pelosi. It's not charity. I know you like to discuss these things, and so I'm not quite sure why you're being this hostile. I was going to bring you on to talk about them.
Okay. All right.
How
about Emerald Bay? How about Emerald Bay with Sam and Emma? Emerald Bay on the ocean. Anyone or anything you don't know can't come inside.
Emerald Bay.
That's what your show is. Emerald Bay, a gated community of privilege.
Fine.
I'm an empath.
Is that right?
I feel for those who are suffering, and I wish I had the luxury that you and Emma have to talk about. The debt ceiling, Antifa. I'm not sitting behind the gates inside Indian Springs Ranch with Sam and Emma.
What is Indian Springs Ranch? I don't
Are
even.
these
your
real
gated-
gated communities, David?
That's a gated community of a show that the two of you have
Okay.
moved into, where you talk politics like it was some sort of backgammon game, in between sidecar cocktails with lemons squeezed right off
that
the
sounds
tree.
nice, but David, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure where you're going with this.
Is that Emma?
Yes. Yeah. We've been
Oh.
speaking. Everything okay, David?
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for chiming in, Emma. I know how busy you are these days with that. You got that new show of yours promoting online wagering? Right?
Yeah.
Gambling's a disease. You know that, don't you?
David, she's not promoting online gambling.
Sure. That's not it. I think that.
I mean, we're
maybe
out.
you don't watch her. Maybe it eats you up inside watching her do a show. But I watch the show. It's online gambling, right? But you're in denial. Okay.
Well,
and Seder
perhaps.
University. Seder University.
Seder
isn't
University.
funded by Yeah, that's not funded by APAC in a partnership with the National Petroleum Institute.
Seder
Right?
University.
Right.
There's no
University
Seder
is not-
University. You're thinking of
Right.
Prager
Not-
University.
No, Seder University, I've read the 501c3, okay? It's funded by billionaires. Your Seder University is funded by billionaires who pay you to pepper the videos with, that state-of-the-art After Effects crap, so you can sneak in subliminal propaganda in support of, what is it you're pushing, the neoliberal world order these days?
Yeah,
What effect did you
latest-
see, David?
Well, first off, dude, are you
That's
all
your
right?
son? Why isn't your son in school? Isn't today school day?
It's not my son. There is no Cedar
calling
University.
child-
Matt is not my son. Emma's not pushing online
child
gaming.
abuse.
You're
This
there.
is child abuse. Matt, are you safe? You feel
Look.
safe, Matt?
David. Matt is not my son. He is not being abused.
That
Emma's
worked.
not doing online, and there is no Seder University or Cedar University for that matter.
Cedar. There is no. You're right. Thank you for. That's the first honest thing you've said all day.
Well, it's the second,
There's
the
no-
third
yeah.
time I've said it too.
Yeah, and there is no Cedar University because you sold the entire catalog of videos to Hillsdale College. The private conservative Christian.
No, I know what Hillsdale College is.
In Hillsdale, yeah. Do your listeners even know that Cedar University is now part of Hillsdale College and you're funded by the ultra right-wing conservative Christians?
I doubt they know that
pretend-
because it's not true. And so why would they know that
Yeah.
any more than they would know that there was a Feldman University?
Yeah, well, there's, I wonder how the conservative Christians who fund your show would feel if they knew that you were in league with Emma, who's hosting a show that promotes the sin of gambling. I don't think the people from Hillsdale College would look too kind. Gambling's a sin, Emma.
Well, it's not about gambling, David. It's about sports, not gambling. I mean, it's about sports. David?
Tell that to your maker.
Oh.
Tell that to your maker. Don't tell that to me. Tell that to your maker. I've watched the show, and you cater
parents?
to addicts. You tell your viewers how to wager on football games with no. You told me to take the Giants, Emma, and my cat is eating cat food now because of you. You told me to take the Giants, and now. Martin,
David, I mean, your cat should be eating cat food, but because of me, your cat's eating cat food now.
I trusted you, and Martin is now eating cat food because you told me to take the Giants, and now Martin and I have to cut back, and he's eating cat food.
David, that's not what her show is about. She's a Giants fan.
You should have known not to trust the Giants' recommendation.
Right, exactly.
It's a disease. You're promoting a disease. Gambling is a sickness. And Sam, are you still here, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, you of all people should know that gambling is a disease. And
Wait,
I don't want
what?
to bring it up.
Me?
Yeah, I don't want to bring it up, but you of all people should know that gambling is a disease.
What
You of all people-
are
want
you
me to bring it up? Do you want me to bring it up? Because I will. I will. Growing up in Englewood, New Jersey, I'm going to say it, and I'm sure you're going to cut me off, but Sam's father always had a new car, the big vacations, the huge house.
Yeah.
You
know what? I am going to cut you off. I did not grow up in Englewood, New Jersey. I did not grow up in New Jersey. I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I don't even know where Englewood, New Jersey is.
5 families your father had, and you were always happy when I was growing up. And I asked my mother, why can't the Feldmans have the nice things that the Cedars and have? Why are they always going on vacations? And you know what? My father, I'm going to tell the truth, Sam, and I'm sure you'll cut me off. My father sat me down and explained that Sam's father was a degenerate gambler. And he was very. Your father was sick. He couldn't stop. He was always coming home from Atlantic City, tipping your friends.
Ever
I would
been
come
to
over.
Atlantic City? I don't think he's ever been to Atlantic City.
Your father would tip me. I'd shake his hand. He'd slip me a 50.
My father has never met you.
It was sick. Gambling is sick. It ruins lives. Martin, my cat, is forced to eat cat food because Emma told me to take the Giants.
Now, David, this is all moot. It's a sports show. We talk about unions. We talk about concussions. We talk about systemic racism. Yeah.
Concussions. You're telling people how to bet on concussions? That's what it's come to? This is what sports gambling has come to? I can place a bet now on whether or not Brock Purdy's going to catch chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Is that
not.
I can bet.
That is not what the show's about, and that's just not true, David.
Sure, it's like wow. I'm surprised I haven't been cut off yet.
You know what? Let me cut you off for a second because I have absolutely no idea what is going on with you right now.
Yeah, you don't in your gated community.
Yeah,
in Whispering Oaks with Sam and Emma.
Governor of Georgia has, I don't even know why I'm trying to talk about the state of emergency. We're going to be talking actually about what's going on in Georgia about this environmental activists.
Is she going to give the over under on the riots in Georgia? Is that like you can place bets now? Is that
David? I don't know what's going on. You're attacking Emma because she does a show in sports. You think that I grew up in New Jersey and you have these fever dreams of my father.
Hey, I'm not attacking Emma. I am passing judgment on her.
Oh, good.
And your show, I'm passing judgment on your listeners and members of your faith, Sam. Members of
my faith? What faith? I don't have a faith.
Arms akimbo.
What are you talking about?
I accuse. I'm passing judgment on your faith.
I don't have. What faith?
You don't have a faith?
I don't have a faith.
College. Yeah,
what?
You and your Hillsdale College buddies aren't breeding Red Bulls down in Texas and then shipping those Red Bulls to Israel in order to facilitate the second coming of Jesus. You don't know anything about that? You don't know anything about your breeding? Yeah, how you're breeding Red Bulls?
Red Bulls? Like the drink? Like, what are you talking about?
No, the cattle, the Red Bulls, Galatians 3. And the cherry-colored cattle shall signal to our Lord, his time is upon us. I know what you're up to. Your listeners don't know how you're facilitating the apocalypse with the Red Bulls.
Literally,
so
my first question for you was, or the second question was going to be about Elise Stefanik and her endorsement of George Santos, basically biting her in the ass. That was what my first. I don't know where.
Biting her in the what? In the what? Biting her in the what?
Biting her in the ass.
What? Language, Sam. I know you're a free speech absolutist, but I don't appreciate the word ASS, okay?
You don't appreciate the word ASS? That's very surprising because that's exactly how I would describe you at this moment.
Really. Oh,
Yeah.
there's Emma laughing.
Yeah.
Laugh at me. Shame on you, Emma. A new day is coming. Okay, a day is coming when all of you will stand before the pearly gates of heaven,
This is a threat.
all of us will be shown our receipts and be forced to answer for them. Okay,
Yeah. So,
Sam?
David,
right.
what do you say? Should we discuss Jeff Zients? We Biden's new chief of staff. We just spoke about him with Dave.
It's maniacal.
Wow. Wait. Emma.
Yeah.
Let me hang on. I'm sorry to interrupt. What is the name of Biden? This is so great. What is the name of Biden's new chief of staff? What's his name again?
Jeff Zients.
It's pronounced Jeff. It's pronounced Jeff. So I guess you're the ass. You're so busy calling me an ass.
Yeah.
You don't even
You know what?
how to
Actually,
pronounce-
you're an ass.
Jeff,
You're an
the
ass. David.
You're an ass.
You're an ass.
You're an ass.
David,
You're an
what is
You're an-
wrong with you?
You're an ass. You're an ass. That's what you are. You're an ass.
What is
You're an
wrong
ass.
with you?
And
Honestly.
when the
What is going on?
Red Bulls what's going on is the Red Bulls are going to Israel because of you and Jesus.
Have you left your house yet, David? Have you been in your house for like 3 years yet? Like, what is going on with you?
You're an ass.
You're an ass. You're an ass. Ass.
No, you're an ass.
Ass.
Oh, he hung up.
My God.
Oof.
Wow.
What
Fun halftime?
is going on with him?
He needs
Help?
Yeah. He needs Jesus or
Yep.
someone. Shoot. Shouldn't have said that. Let that
You
slip.
know, when we hear about these reports on the heavy metals released by the burning of gas stoves in people's apartments,
Hit the spot, David.
Georgia governor did declare national state of emergency. 1,000 National Guard.
The Georgia?
Yeah.
Right. Of course.
For this cop city, we're going to be talking. I'm interviewing someone this afternoon from.
Yeah, he's a.
Can't hear you.
He's an activist with the against the Cop City development in Atlanta.
And when are we going to play that?
With either next week or in the weeks, definitely in February, probably in early to either next week or the week after.
Okay, maybe we'll Tuesday because we might want to.
Oh yeah,
just run it.
Highlight it.
Bump that up.
All right, boy, I don't know what's up with Feldman, but does not seem healthy. Folks, we're going to take a break, head into the fun half of the program. 646-257-3920 is the number. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only allow the show to survive and thrive, but you also get the free half free of commercials, and then you get the fun half. And then you also have the ability to IM us on the app. Just log in on the app if you're a member. And if you're not a member, you can still use the app. It's a great app, both iOS and Apple. You can find it, iOS and Android, I should say. You can find it at majorityapp.com. We have links there to it. But in the meantime, become a member, jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget, sign up for the AM Quickie. What is it? We're 3 times a week free and 5 times a week if you...
Yeah, two behind the paywall, three free.
There you go.
Yeah.
So check that out. Dave was Phil Spectoring you for sound drops. I have no idea what that was about with Feldman. That was
he's okay.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay too. Also, don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. I should say Matt is not my son. We have no relation. I guess it's technically possible. I probably would have been about 20, 22 when you were born.
1988.
21. Let's not get carried away.
Matt was born in December.
Yeah, 1988, 22. I'd be 22. I'd be 22.
I mean, you know.
No, that's
that
not
year
possible.
doesn't
I wasn't
matter
20
that much.
Oh, 22 in December. All right. Well, if he was my child, he would have been born earlier, and then I would have been 21.
28 for me.
All right, let's just calm down, everybody.
30 for me.
Let's calm down. Jesus. Oh, boy. Emma, what's happening on your gambling show?
Yeah, lots of, just really, really debaucherous stuff happening over there. Conference championship weekend in the NFL. Check the show out. We're very excited. Lots of fun. We also talked a bit about Damian Lillard, what his continued tenure with Portland really means for the NBA, and his incredibly clutch and efficient 60-point game. Plus the new hires, Frank Reich, Nathaniel Hackett to the Jets, Bradley is in pain. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
And how to talk to your bookie if he's a MAGA person.
Yeah, that's behind the paywall. That doesn't exist. Anyway, that's it.
Left Reckoning, we got part 2 of our me and David discussing Rosa Luxemburg's Reform and Revolution. That's going to go up for patrons, patreon.com/Left Reckoning on Sunday.
And your merch.
Oh, we have merch too. I don't know what this.
I just
if
saw
you
that
Google it.
your guys' account posted it, so
We are selling lots of merch. You can check out our website for that.
Moleman Dentist Guild says, can you prove that Feldman isn't an AI simulation of a crazy person? I honestly don't know how to describe or to
It would
assess
explain
what-
his stamina for 6-hour broadcasts.
yeah, there you go. 646-257-3920. We'll be right back after this. We'll take your IMs and perhaps your phone calls. See you then.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Dayen.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dayen.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. See white people doing drugs. They